Folks, and just some quick agenda setting through the next 1 hour. We're really going to cover the top follow-up channels and what you need to be doing better with those channels, personalization, and using AI really to your advantage. And look, no slides, right? We're going to do this completely without slides. It's going to be fun. There will be a recording. You folks will get it later in our follow-up.
That's not to say that I will not show you some crazy things.
Yes, of course. I fully expect that and invite that from you, James and Deren, of course.
It wouldn't be, I wouldn't be on the show if it didn't get crazy.
That's for sure. And just before we get into specific strategies, right, I'd like to know what you think are some of the most common follow-up mistakes that maybe you've made or you've been at the receiving end of. James, you want to go first?
I would be happy to. Okay, I'm going to talk about a few that I am both guilty of and that I see in the space constantly as we look at emails and messages and even listen to calls from reps that are on the front lines. So first and foremost, doubt words. What are doubt words? Words like if, perhaps, maybe, possibly. These are words that instill some level of doubt in your recipient's mind. If this is interesting, maybe we can connect. Perhaps this is a priority. What you're doing in those moments when you use that language, whether you're on a call or in the written word, is you're saying, I'm not really sure. I'm kind of guessing here. And that's a terrible approach when you think about your confidence coming into a conversation with someone you're about to ask for money from. So look for those doubt words in everything that you do and try your best to mitigate those. Use those much less than you typically would. Instead of saying, perhaps this is interesting, use that to guess, make a hypothesis. Perhaps if we did X, you might see Y. Is that interesting to you? That's a better positioning for a word like perhaps. So that's my first nugget. What do you got, Deren?
I'm going to stick on the same theme, but slightly different. I'll go with just the psychology, confidence. And if you don't have the right body language, the right tone, if you're not setting that energy at the right level, at the before you make your first call, before you send your first message, it's going to come across that way. And so all those things matter, whether you're remote or going to visit a client in person or whatever it is, over the phone, over email. That tone, your body language, everything goes into it.
So I like that one, and I'll stay in a vein similar to that and talk about tonality. So I got this from Chet Holmes, The Ultimate Sales Machine, early 2000s. I'm probably dating myself. But he talks about gatekeepers and the way that we approach them. So let's talk about calls. First of all, cold calling is back in an enormous way. And the reason for that is because leaders are sick and tired of having to mine through thousands of AI automation emails to try to figure out what's valuable. They appreciate a phone call with some value dropped on it. That said, when you get somebody on a call, you're either going to get them direct or you're going to get the gatekeeper. I'm going to give you some tips on both of them and talk about some mistakes people make. When you get a gatekeeper, we have this terrible habit, and this is, again, The Ultimate Sales Machine, Chet Holmes. We use an upward inflection, and that sounds like this. Hi, can I speak with Deren, please? This is such a bad habit. Already you're on your heels. This person is very easily saying, I can put you through to their voicemail, please hold. And now you're like, oh, well, that didn't do me any good, right? You're leaving a voicemail, maybe, but they're not going to get back to you. Nobody's phone is ringing off the hook from all the voicemails they leave. Instead, try it this way. I'd like to speak with Deren, please. You probably felt the difference when I said it with a downward inflection, and that puts me in a position of authority. A lot of times when you do this, Deren, please, downward inflection, one moment, and they put you right through, right? It's not, I'll send you to their voicemail. It's, Deren, someone's on the phone with you and they sound serious. After I get Deren, I can let that seriousness go. I can be like, Deren, what's up? James, sell better. How you doing today? Right? And like, that's a much more efficient approach. That downward inflection puts you in a position to sound like you mean business. Use that when you get a gatekeeper. And also, I'll say this. Stop viewing gatekeepers as obstacles to be overcome. These are human beings that likely have the most access to your decision maker. So stop them when they say, I'll put you through to their voicemail. Oh, hang on. What's your name? My name's Jonathan. Jonathan, I leave a lot of voicemails for Deren. Do you think you could write this one down for me? I might have a higher likelihood of getting a call back. What do you think? Right? You call again. Hi, is this Jonathan? No. Oh, I called yesterday and spoke with Jonathan. What's your name? Right? If you treat these people like human beings and you're consistent, they're in your corner. They want you to win.
My favorite analogy using that though is with tonality, because I think that's 100% spot on. It's the analogy is it's almost like your subject line. If you have a bad subject line in your email, it doesn't matter what the content is. No one's going to read it, right?
Everybody
So
always, I agree. Everybody always thinks, how do I get my email responded to? Start thinking, how do I get it so they don't delete my email, right?
like you just like I go through them and I click I don't I open read mass delete,
Yeah, I
right?
think everybody does. I think we start our
I
day and
heard Deren, I think a marketer somewhere really cried when they heard that, but it's valid.
a marketing heart just hardened a little bit more when they heard that about their
Yeah,
emails.
and just on voicemails, I'd love to hear maybe from the audience, like what are your favorite voicemail openers? I know James gave us some of his, maybe put yours in the chat. That would be fun to see.
Yeah, I would love that. Oh, I can't put mine in there. Damn. All right, cool. So I agree with you on the how people go through their inbox. This is what I tend to find. I think every human being does this. We go to lunch, we come back, and we get up in the morning and we sit down at our desk and we do the same thing. In both of those instances, we scan. And what are we looking for? We're looking for shit that's automated that I don't need to open to know, and I just click a checkbox, and stuff from strangers that I'm not expecting. Okay, checkbox. And then we scroll up to the top and we hit our trash can, and the stuff that's left is the stuff we actually want to read. If you do not live this way, you are an alien. We don't know what you are. If you're one of those people that read every email, you probably do zero work every day, especially in the modern age, because you wake up every day and have 800 emails if you're a decision maker. So I don't know how you're functioning if you're not operating in that way. So the question is, how do I avoid being one of the check boxes? Not how do I get a response? That comes later.
I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more, right? It's literally you're comparing the subject line in just a small box, just one after the other, after the other, after the other.
Yeah.
And do they get a checkbox or not is the key as to your email might be read. Might be read. You're not even fully in the door yet. I mean, you got maybe 1 foot in at that point.
Yep. Here's a mistake people make. They don't read their emails out loud. Read them out loud. Do you talk like that? Does it sound like you? If it doesn't, don't send that email. And then obviously, like, how much of that email is about you? Common practice for me. I'll separate an email I just wrote out into lines, and I look to the left margin. If they start with I, me, we, our, that email is not about my prospect. It's about me. And I have to go back and revise that email. And we can talk about revisions and AI and all types of stuff later.
Yeah, and I think, James, one of the other things that you also mentioned was that calls are back in a big way. Wondering what your strategy is there.
All right. For me, I think calls are back in a big way, once again, because inboxes and even social channels are getting so overwhelmed with automation and AI driven messaging. That's, if you're in the B2B SaaS space, you're probably really good at, um, um, recognizing that AI in it. But if you're in manufacturing, if you're in auto, if you're in anything other than B2B SaaS, you probably don't have a lot of exposure to identifying an AI written email. That's the diversity factor in where we are on the spectrum, and it's industry specific. So when it comes to, you asked me about openings, or you asked me about call numbers, right?
Yeah.
I try to hit 50 very targeted calls a day. And that seems low. But keep in mind, trigger based or signal led sales is what's driving those calls. These people came to one of the Sell Better daily sales shows, which you can check out at sellbetter.xyz. Feel free. It's all free stuff for you. These people reached out, filled out a form, sent me an email asking for something earlier in the week, and I just haven't gotten back to them yet. These calls are not cold per se. They're not expecting them, so that makes them technically a cold call. But I have a reason. I have something they did that's causing me to reach out. Those openers sound something like this. Hey, what's up? I got your email. That's it. And then I shut up. And they're like, who's this? And now I've earned the right to tell them my name instead of the typical call where it's like, hi, my name's James and I'm with Sell Better and we're the leading provider of No One Cares. Right. And that's how people perceive those. Right. I just did a thing where I had to call like a bot, and the bot was programmed to be an asshole, basically. And it was like, you know, it's great practice for openers for getting it. This is a good comment from Irene Law. Wow, 50 calls per day. I like one call every 10 minutes. 50 is a lot. Well, I'll tell you that in the B2B SaaS space, 50 calls a day is laughable. We see numbers in the 300s sometimes with SDRs, sales development reps in the SaaS world. And that's a common target to put in front of them. Once again, we're back to like the industry diversity and how numbers are viewed. So calls is a deep subject because it's a matter of like, why are you calling these people? How did you get this information? Are you even allowed? Are you capable of calling these people without getting served with some cease and desist, which by the way, I've been served with. So, you know, calling has been put back into the focus because it's become overwhelming in the other channels.
Hmm. I think calling
I
is really such a multi-edged sword, right? Like if you get it right, it's incredible, but if you botch it up, it's, it's an experience that no one is going to forget in a hurry. Curious what you think, Darren. And I know you also mentioned, SMS and text, so curious on your strategy there.
Yeah, absolutely. And even to address like what Irene is saying, like 50 calls is a lot, depending on how you look at it. And, I think James makes a good point, in the B2B SaaS world, 300, 400 calls is a totally reachable number as well. But having intent and creating intent, which also ties into how much research you're doing and how much preparation you're doing, allows you to ideally make those 50 calls more back to back versus every 10 minutes or spending your whole day trying to do research and break it up and do all those different things. But I think the intent piece, where you can start to apply a trigger-based selling motion, and really identify which accounts have the right intent so that you're reaching out with reason is super important. And then from there, I think SMS and messaging is another great tactic that's, to be honest, in my world, very underutilized. I say depending on the personas that you're reaching out to, you got to be very careful. But depending on the personas reaching out to, you can use it as an outreach method. I would say the majority of the folks that I see utilizing it are doing it after they've gotten the right to respond or reach out in that method, maybe through some sort of permission from their prospects. And so, but if you can get in or start using the SMS and text messaging, your connection rates or your outreach or reply rates are just going to go through the roof. Absolutely through the
Yeah.
roof.
Yeah, I have a habit that I've gotten into over the last few years, probably 3 years I've been doing this. And I'll tell people in the room that are listening, this only works if you're having a good conversation with somebody. You guys hit it off. You had a good value conversation. They've maybe even scheduled the call with your account executive or with you. Things have gone well. These 8 words are going to be able to get you to that text relationship with this person so fast. You ready? These are the words. I do this all the time. Is this your cell? Can I text you? And then when they say yes, and they almost always say yes, I don't think I've ever had anyone be like, nah, I'm straight. Thanks. Like that just never happened, right? Especially after a good call. So they're like, yeah, sure. Text me anytime. So right there, I'll send my first and last name. And I'll be like, I just texted you my first and last. Please save my number. I'm going to put you in as a contact. Then you can even feather it in with this. I have it so that unknown numbers don't ring on my phone. I still get the missed call, but they don't ring. And if you call me, I would like to know that it's you so that I can pick up. So can I get you to text me back and I'll save your number really quick? Right. And they do. They'll text you back and give you their first and last name right there on the call. And then you have now earned the right to send texts, send videos, send voice notes via text. You can send memes and GIFs and jokes. And these people gravitate towards you more than any other seller they've spoken to this quarter as a result of that. Here's the key. Don't vanish after you get what you want. You still got to go through your contacts from time to time. Stay in touch. Don't be that person that's like, oh, I earned that. Thanks a lot. Bye.
James, I'm really curious, right? That sounds incredible. But how many times does it actually work? When you throw that line at them, the 8 words, like how many times out of 10 do you get a positive reply?
Every time. I've never had somebody that
Wow.
responded back and was like, oh, I'd prefer it if you didn't text me. That doesn't happen, right? I've never even had somebody that's like, how'd you get this number? I think that happened to me early in my career, like 2014, 2015, when dialing people's cell phone numbers was like a faux pas. You were like, oh my gosh, that is too far. But here we are in 2025, where CEOs and decision makers all over the globe are constantly on the move. The idea that we're going to be able to call some desk number, go through a prompt, hit an extension, and leave a voicemail on their desk number, and they're going to be like, hey, what's up? I just got your voice message on my desk phone, and I'm calling you back to find out what you want. This is not 1998, y'all. That does not happen. That's not a thing in the modern age. When somebody says, how'd you get this number? You should say, I use, and then insert your product. Have you heard of it? The worst thing they can say is, well, how did they get my number? And you have no idea what that answer is. I don't know. It's 2025. Numbers are everywhere. Right? Like, what do you mean, man?
It's harder and harder to like separate yourself from the pack too, right? And like, if your competitors, your peers or others just aren't using these methodologies, like, yeah, it's becoming much less invasive. Like now you even see folks walking around. I laugh, they've got two phones, and I'm like, oh, I know I can message this person. They've got a work phone. I'm not invading in their personal life at all,
You're
right?
expecting something to hit that phone.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
it sounds like for this to really work, there obviously has to be a lot of trust built up, right? I'm just thinking as a prospect here, for me to say yes to someone to text an SMS, or to follow up really, it seems like something that you have to earn trust for. And I'm just curious on, how you folks do that. Is it timing? Is it how fast you do it? Like, how does it work?
Deren, you go first on this one. I talked way too much.
yeah, no, I mean, I do think it takes some trust. I do think at this point in time, we're starting to see that shift, kind of using the same analogy that was saying with desk phones. Is yeah, 10 years ago, you did not want to call someone's cell phone. You were going to get a negative reaction, and it was going to ruin whatever conversation you were about to have before you had it, right? And I would say we're getting to a point where we are starting to see some messages, especially when they're thoughtful or worded correctly, or it's clearly not AI, things that are, super transactional, where you can start to send those messages up front. At least that's my opinion. And I would highly suggest trying it based on personas and existing relationship. You can find a lot of intent, and like for all the sellers that are on this call, by working with your marketing team and your RevOps teams, like you can get in there. Are they signed up? Have they signed up for webinars? Are they part of your newsletters, your blogs? Like those types of things help lower the barrier of entry, where you can start to tie in things like confidence and tonality, and it can be worth testing. And like, I always like to say there's in sales, if you're not A/B testing, and you'll see a lot of that content all over LinkedIn these days. If you're not trying new things, you're not standing out, and or it's getting automated by someone else.
I couldn't agree more, and I think I do see a lot about A/B testing. I want to give you some language on how to earn trust. It's actually a little more transparent than you think. And then I want to talk about a magic word that you use, Deren, transactional, because I think there's something to be said for how that word functions in the modern age. There are pieces of that that I want to explore with everybody. So, when we talk about transactional, let's start there first. When we talk about transactional, every part of a sales cycle has pieces that are transactional and pieces that are in depth, and we have to know the difference. Here's a good example. Getting the meeting scheduled initially with your prospect is an extremely transactional conversation. In fact, I'd argue that most cold calls are lucky to last a minute, if that. The idea is to create some interest, find the time that works, maybe a little qualification in there if you get the chance, possibly some discovery, right? Those things pretty fast. A couple of questions. When are you free? That is a transactional part of the beginning of that deal. A little further down the funnel, especially if it's an enterprise or mid-market deal, you may have to deal with legal. You might have to deal with procurement. There's nothing transactional about that part of the deal. That's a very in-depth process. So, know the parts of a deal that are transactional and the parts that are not. so that you can treat the ones that can be transactional in transactional language. And you can stop and slow down that transactional language when you come up against that thing that's a little more in depth. Now let's circle back to trust. You guys want to talk about how you earn trust, and you think most sellers, especially young sellers that are new in the business, I was a bartender yesterday, I'm a salesperson today, right? They believe that trust is earned by convincing and persuading. This is a misnomer. It's like a bad cancer that gives other salespeople in the space a bad name. And I'm quoting my friend John Barrows. It is not our job to convince and persuade people to buy what we have. It's our job to sell what we have to people that need it. That feels so different when you think about it, right? So you want to earn trust. Here's some language. Hey, listen, this has been great. I feel like we've got good vibes here and there's a good interest and conversation to be had. How do I earn you and the rest of the stakeholders' trust long term? That's one of the most powerful questions you can ask somebody that you've already got a little bit of rapport with and they're interested in what you do. Hey, this sounds great. I'm looking forward to the stakeholder call with everybody. What's a good thing you can tell me about them? How do I earn everyone's trust on that call? This language puts you in a different category than the standard seller that these people come in contact with on a daily basis, which is kind of the norm. Bant, Medic, Spin, Sandler, right? These methodologies are well known in the sales space. They've been around for a long time. We can spot them. Don't bant me, bro. Like, that's how people feel. So instead of doing that, how do I earn you and the team's trust is way outside that methodology, unrecognizable in many ways. Try it. Watch what happens.
On the transactional point, I think someone asked a good question up here. Was it Michael? What is the average conversion from a call to answer in your business? And even from just to answer that question, to me, the right answer is you probably should have different connect rates across different types of leads, right? And you're going to have leads that are more transactional with less intent, and then you're going to have that bucket of 50 that are theoretically perfect and you already know have some intent. And you should not be getting the same connect rates on all those different types of calls, or something might be off.
I agree with that. And I can talk about data decay for a while. And this probably comes back to follow-up strategy, right? Because data decay, arguably, one of the largest problems that we face in the sales space today. LinkedIn claims to have the most accurate data. And that's probably true because everyone's updating their own profiles. But here's the thing. Data providers can't keep up with all those changes. So let's say you have a great conversation with somebody, they're super interested, and then you send 3-4 different messages after the fact, and they haven't gotten back to you. Oh my gosh, I thought we had such a good conversation. Then they ghosted me. What happened? What did I do wrong? Then you see it. They left the company. The 5th email that you sent got bounced back, and it said this email address doesn't exist. But you went to LinkedIn, and you saw they haven't changed anything on LinkedIn yet. But then you reach out in a DM and you're like, hey, what did I miss? Did I lose you? Right? And they're like, oh, I left the company 3 weeks ago. Sorry, I haven't gotten back to you. Here's the tactic. Mark that person. Hit the alerts button up at the top in their LinkedIn profile right at that moment. Because they have a job, a title, an expertise that makes them one of your buyers. Chances are very high they're going to become a decision maker at another company in the very near future. If you already had a good conversation with them, you're looking for that post that they put out that says, congratulations, or I'm excited, I've taken a new role as whatever that title is at this company. Boom. That human being that you already have baked in rapport with is now a prospect. And you can follow up in the context of their new company. And that is a win all day because you don't have to earn your stripes again with that person. They already know who you are, what you do. You can get right into the deeper conversation there.
Wow, I think it sounds like good follow-up is not just what you're doing in the moment, but clearly what you're doing before as well and how you're treating your leads and your contacts overall, right? And I think we have some interesting questions, by the way, in the chat here as well. I think we can take a couple of them. Irene says, is it a good time to follow up with an SMS after leaving a voicemail to let them know who you are and that you just called about whatever it is, X, and you wanted to make sure that they had a number and then go on to say a brief sentence that repeats a bit of what is in the voice message? What do you folks think on this?
I'll take a stab. I think it's a great idea. Again, I think it depends on the persona. I probably wouldn't do it if you're selling into CIOs, for example. You might not get the right message back, but I also think if you can make it less invasive, and instead of asking for something via SMS or text message and informing or providing something of value, you will get better response, and you'll see, or the prospect or customer might feel like their privacy is being less managed.
I agree with you, and I will add that there is a piece of that I would leave out, and it's the bit at the end where you repeat what's in the voicemail. Here's something, and I guess we're back to mistakes in a small way here. Salespeople need to stop bringing up past attempts that have failed to connect. We need to stop doing it. It's a dance. The buyers know that they're ghosting you. They know they're avoiding you. You're aware they're going to ghost you and avoid you. For every solution that is out there that is geared to help salespeople get in front of buyers, there is another solution created to help buyers avoid salespeople. Do you understand that that's a fact? Once you get that, you realize we're just doing the dance. I had recently a conversation, me and Jed Marley, the closer, one of the closers here at Sell Better that I've worked with for a long time, very talented young man. Him and I work deals together, and we have great conversations with people, and then they just vanish. But then fast forward 2 months, we've sent them 5 follow-up emails, and we're not pushy. We're not going to chase you down. If you don't want it, you don't want it. I'm fine with that. I get it. But then 2 months later, they'll come back and be like, hey, so sorry we ghosted. We're ready to re-explore this now. Well, this is like gasoline on the pipeline. We are moving a mile a minute with this account at this point because they're ready. I say this all the time. Know this, no matter what you think about your follow-up process, every prospect that you're selling to has a buying process. 90% of everything about that deal, we are in their buying process. The last 10% of their buying process represents 100% of our sales process.
That's a
And
great analogy.
if you just realize that, you can ride their buying process waves all the way to shore and then step off when you get there and begin your sales process.
And I'm just going to throw in something really fun here, James, which is that speaking on the behalf of people who get to be part of the buying process, sometimes these people do not even have a fixed buying process. So you know what? When you're asking your prospects, what is your buying process? Who's next? What's up next? When do we talk about budget or any of these things? You know what? Sometimes your prospect does not know. It could be a new company, it could be a new system, they could have a new head of finance, right? So there are a lot of variables there. So you really need to really partner up with your prospects. Just my 2 cents.
Discovery questions that identify who you're talking to are crucial. So here's a good one, right? In the discovery question, hey, before I let you go, what happened the last time you guys tried to buy something? How did that go? If they can't describe that to you, you're probably not even talking to the right person.
If you even know if they've bought software before, if you can figure that out, that's also just so key. Because if someone's never bought software, hold on to your hats because it's going to be a wild ride.
I'll throw another one out there. This has been fun. We're like throwing zingers left and right here. Another good one that I would do if I'm following up is, hey, John, had a great conversation with you last week. Really looking forward to seeing if we can move forward. I'm going to assume since I haven't heard back, someone in your organization is probably halting things. Am I right? That email identifies the guy, the woman, the person that is blocking your momentum. Now you can go connect with them on LinkedIn, engage with their content, build rapport with them, and before you know it, you're in a conversation with them as well.
So you just bring up one of my favorite things, and this is something we regularly talk about within my org at JustCall, is running towards your risk. I see it all over LinkedIn. I actually thought I saw a post on it this morning. I can't remember, but It's such an important part of sales where the best sellers and the best SDRs, AEs, whoever it is, are running towards the areas where they are most likely to lose their deal and try and tackle those. It is such an important step in your process and their process to even understand if you're spending the right time with the right people in the right business.
That's a hard thing to know, and we're always after the qualification disqualification. Follow-ups are a great way to continue the conversation to a point where they're further qualifying themselves or giving you information that disqualifies them in a way. I remember I had a couple of deals that were Salesforce related in my early career, and you had to use Salesforce in order to buy my product. Like that was the only real requirement, is that your company was a Salesforce using organization. I made the mistake so many times of talking about updating your CRM, not Salesforce, getting data into your CRM, not Salesforce. It's CRM, and they're all like, "Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem." So then you forward it on to the account executive, and you're like, "This is a great op. There's 300 users. It's going to be a big opportunity. They're very interested. Blah blah blah." So then the account executive does it, and you're like, "Hey, how'd the call go?" And they're like, "Dude, they don't even use Salesforce." Make sure that every follow-up that you do further qualifies and it discovers, in a way, these individuals. Now, that's not to say that you should be following up and asking for something every time. I will tell you that some of my best follow-ups are just value drops. Hey, I thought this would be interesting based on our last conversation. No response. That's okay. Hey, I have a guide here for you and your team. When you and I spoke, you said X. This guide will help them do Y. Check it out. Talk to you later. These get responses that are like, "Hey, thanks for sending. I haven't forgotten about you yet. We're working internally on it." That's the update I need. Great. I haven't lost my momentum. Fantastic. But don't do the thing where you establish interest, you follow up once, and then every follow up after is, "What's happening? What's the deal? Where are we moving? What's going on? How did you do in the meeting? What's the update?" Right? This is very pestering for leaders. They don't want that. They're not going to go fight for you internally if that's your MO. Instead, how are they getting value from you? Every time they come in contact with you. That is what solidifies you to earn that trust we were talking about earlier.
I think, James, we're at halftime, and honestly, I think over halftime, and I think I've already learned so much about doing good follow-ups. I'm not even in sales, right? So I think this is a bucket load of value for people who really are. But marketing, honestly, is so close that it's not even funny. We're pretty much identical at some point. And just to go back a little bit, right? I think we talked a little bit really towards personalization, kind of knowing your audience, who you are, knowing when the right time is. And I think we can probably just dig into that piece a little bit. We all know that it's important to personalize, right? But how do you really scale it and do it at scale? Because we're not talking about, one call or two call. We're talking about, multiple accounts, multiple deals that you want to close, in a month or a quarter. So what are your best tips really for scaling personalization?
You, Deren.
Yeah, I'll take a first stab. So I think the key is like when it comes back to like who you're trying to reach out to, really identifying and creating a central list of like your tier one or tier A accounts, and then you're probably still gonna have tier B and tier C, but those accounts might have a little bit less intent or might not be as high value for certain reasons, and so. The personalization is like really meant to be on those tier one, tier A's. And when you get to those tier one, tier A accounts, you spend the time and now there's a whole bunch of different resources through AI where we can kind of replace some of the manual work that we might, may have taken us, tens of minutes or even a half hour or hour, where you can start to do research and really personalize those messages, knowing that they're higher value, and again that there might be some intent already. And so I would try and list, your top 10 accounts, your top 50 accounts. I probably wouldn't go more than that. I'd probably keep it actually somewhere between those two. It could be 25, it could be 30, it could be 50, but really trying to target those top accounts and then spend the time to actually personalize it and be different than what you're seeing on the market. James opened with this, right? Why cold calling? Why is phone becoming more popular? Because the market is just so saturated. And the scary thing to me is that even applies to calling to some degree as well. And if you're not finding a way to personalize your message or stay relevant or add value, it's not going to work out well for you.
Can I share my screen?
Go for it, James.
Go for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm very excited about this. I'm wearing the shirt, Agent AI, right? So AI is something that we're seeing in all walks right now. And what I'm going to show you here is something that I built that helps me to identify whether or not an account is even an account that I should spend time on. Now, some of you guys are named accounts. Some of you guys are green fields. Put a 1 in the chat if you have named accounts. Put a 2 in the chat if you can prospect anybody that you want. I just want to get a good feel for the folks that are in the audience, what their game is. Now, I sell to software companies that are trying to get in front of salespeople and their leaders. Dodge Auto is not a qualified prospect for me. So I built this little engine, right? Here's what it looks like. It's just a quick fit checker. And I type the URL of that company in, and it gives me back a grade. And then it also tells me all the reasons why this would be a bad fit or a good fit. Now, here's a one that's a good fit. It's JustCall. JustCall does all these great things like call tracking for your CRM. They enhance communication strategies. The tools are designed to benefit sales and support teams, right? Potentially expanding their show's reach is very important, right? All of these things, automation tools can provide valuable insights, optimizing sales workflows. It's relevant to my sales audience. Look at the score. It's a B. When I run companies through this fit checker that I created, I only go after A and B accounts. If it's a C, I'm probably going to have to convince and persuade. And as I said, that's not my job. If it's a D or an F, they don't fit. What we do isn't valuable for them. So I can remove that I can label that in my CRM as don't go after this account. Then none of my colleagues are going to go after that account. Jose, I do what it takes. We all do what it takes, Jose. Yeah, so that I agree with you on that. And I think when it comes to prioritizing our accounts, we also have to prioritize momentum. I think sometimes salespeople confuse a few things. We confuse personalization with custom written emails. Those two things aren't the same. In one of them, the custom written email, you hit compose and you draft an email from a white space. However, when you're personalizing at scale, some of those parts of those emails don't have to change. The value proposition, for example, probably looks very similar in each one of those emails. Your call to action. Is this interesting to you? You don't have to type that every time. What is important is that the first line of that email screams, I wrote this for you. This did not come from a robot. Something realistic that hit my screen prompted this. So build your templates, but make it a manual touch point that allows you to personalize that opening sentence, because that's what's going to stop you from being one of those checkboxes that we talked about earlier. Full circle moment.
I think that's great. I really like the personalization especially when it comes to the headers and the subject lines. Like it's the first impressions, right? It's like dating. Like you get 10 seconds for that first impression, and once that impression has been made, it's almost impossible to undo it. It really is. No matter what you do, you could be a totally different person than what you appeared to be in the first 10 seconds, and forever it will follow you, right? And so, you use those subject lines, use those first few sentences to really stand out and show that you've done the legwork to personalize and do your research and add value.
You can also do it in a simple way. I think we overcomplicate things quite a bit. We believe that subject line for that CFO needs to say, your financial status in 2025. That's what we think that subject line needs to say. Can I tell you what that subject line should say? Finance. That's it. It's relevant. It's to the point. It's about what they do. Finance. So don't overcomplicate it. Also, again, look at your emails. Look at your messages. Do they fit on the screen? If they fit on the screen of a cell phone, it's probably a consumable, digestible message. But if you have to scroll, what are the chances they're going to scroll? Michael, good question. It's a Sony a6000 with a 25 millimeter lens, and that's why I look primo right now.
Love it, James. And I think one of the things we also talked about was, of course, if you're on call, then I think it's really important to nail the next step and even send over a calendar invite while you're on the call. I'm curious, how easy is it to do that and how important is it?
I'll take a first stab. So I say this all the time. Like, don't recreate the wheel. And the reason I love that is because, sales has been going on for hundreds or thousands or whatever the right number of years is. And it's always the same basics that are going to, or fundamentals that are going to drive your deal forward. If there's not momentum and your, executive buyers or decision makers aren't willing to spend time with you, I honestly don't even care the reason why your deal's not going to close, right? It's just such a strong indicator that if they are not willing to invest their own personal time in something, you do not add enough value when you speak to them, or your product does not add enough value when they're testing it, right? And so if they are unwilling to set up time, or if they are unwilling to schedule time, if they are unwilling to move you over to SMS or messaging or take your call from your cell phone, whatever it is, your deal's in trouble. And so I would say back to the basics. In terms of best practices, I do like setting up next steps live on that call. I also like sending follow-up emails right away while things are still relevant. And then of course, if you can get on a one-to-one, messaging basis, and at JustCall we try and do this a lot because our platform offers both automated and just one-to-one messaging. We really try and reach out and communicate with our customers with how they want to be communicated with, so that they will accept whatever that next step might be.
I have so much to add to this. So first of all, sending messages, sending email invites, calendar invites on the call is an ace move. Here's the mistake I see people make. Don't be on the call and then send your calendar link. What you've done there is you've made it so that they have to open another tab, look at their availability, match it with the times you're available. That's too many steps. I know it seems like it's the more efficient way, but not in the mind of your buyer. It's only efficient for you, right? So don't send the calendar link and expect them to schedule that right there on that call. That's unlikely. The other, yeah, no one likes homework. Thank you. I agree 100. Here's the thing. Send the manual invite, but have it ready to go so that it's easy to click send, and then say, and this is the magic language, I just shot you over that invite. Do you see it? They're going to look. You'll hear them say, hang on, let me get to my inbox. Hang on, let me refresh. Wait, it's not here yet. Let me refresh. Small talk, small talk. Okay, I see it. Okay, great. If you accept it, we'll be good to go, and then I can give you some time back to your day. Thanks again. They hit accept, you get the confirmation, you're out. But they've accepted that. Now it's in stone on their calendar. The only thing they can do is reschedule or cancel. And if that happens, we all know there's a follow-up coming. Hey, I saw that you declined the call. When are we rescheduling? Right? I'm happy to move our existing invite. You don't have to create another one. Don't do that. Move the existing one. It'll send them an email. They'll hit accept and it'll be back on the calendar. I feel like if you have to chase it, you're going to chase the deal indefinitely. Again, you want to work with, and it's hard, right? Because there's this balance between these two comments. I need to meet strangers and qualify them for sales. I only want to talk to people that are going to buy from me. One cannot exist without the other. It's yin and yang, 100%. New revenue, new opportunities comes from talking to strangers. No, every stranger will not be a qualified buyer. And it's a fool's game to think that they will be.
I want to add one more thing to that as well. Like, you brought up a great point earlier, James, about like gatekeepers. And if you're at the executive buying level, or even in some of the small SMBs, you're selling to the CEO, and they might have an admin or an EA. You might send over your calendar invitation and it might get accepted, then all of a sudden it disappears, it's deleted, it's removed, it's rescheduled. Um, it's worth asking, especially if you've already done all this legwork to get to power. Hey, can you let your EA know that I'm going to be trying to reach out and schedule time on your calendar, or let them know who that you're trying to potentially evaluate our platform or who I am. Taking that little extra step, especially once you get to power, you don't want to go falling all the way back to square one, and so it's worth that legwork.
I agree. And I think once you're at power, you have to stay at power, but you can't leave your champions behind, right? Those champions are the ones that are selling for you internally. So you have to stay in contact with them and follow up with them, just like you are the leaders. It's just a little bit of a different approach with the leaders. Leadership is very, don't waste my time. They need data, facts, return on investment. What's the math on this? How does it work? They need that information. The thing that your champion needs is the best language and the best approach to sell it to that leader internally. Once again, enforcing the data and the proof of concept and the case studies verbally to that decision maker. People believe that the job is to go from having a champion to going to a decision maker and then forget that champion. They don't exist anymore. I got to power. No. You are not going to be able to sell internally like that champion will. Here's another fact. Please train or help your champion to sell internally as best as possible. They're not you. They don't have your product knowledge. They don't have your knowledge about who you serve and how you help. You have that knowledge. If you don't impart that knowledge on them, how can you expect them to win over their decision maker in favor of having an experiment and trying your product or service? So have regular follow-up conversations with those champions and ask them how things are going and how you can support them internally in selling that.
I think this.
Irene, you bring up a really good point. Not to switch subjects too much, but depending on personas, like, and if you're talking to an executive buyer or whoever it might be, or where in the world you might be located, that's the whole purpose of personalization, right? Like, I would say I'm the exact opposite. I sit, like, and Kushal can attest to this. I sit on meetings from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. back to back. If you give me 5 minutes back, you made my whole day. And
Yeah,
so, but
Deren
that,
does
that
not
might
go
be
to
very
sleep.
different for somebody else. So,
Well, Darren's decided he's going to leave this webinar early, you guys, so that he can have some time back to his day.
Now, I think you folks bring up some really key points, right? I think from the outside, for someone who doesn't know, it seems like sales is all about numbers and revenue and targets, right? It is all of that, but there is so much nuance and understanding, I think, of human psychology that really goes into it. And I think perhaps from the outside, we don't know it enough, right? One of the tools that people say is going to help us across the board is obviously AI. And that brings us to sort of the last section. We're 10 minutes, sort of away from our last minute. And I think we want to talk a little bit more about AI. I want to keep this really tactical, and helpful to people. What's perhaps, there's goods with AI, there's the pros, there's the cons, there's the roboticness, there's all of those issues that are also coming up. But what's perhaps, your top 1 or 2 tips on using AI in the right ways when it comes to follow-up?
All right, I want to go first on this one.
Take it.
I think that the skill to work on in 2025 and beyond is iteration. Most people are using ChatGPT right now as a very generative thing or a quick Google, right? And like that's a good place to start. But when you're talking about good follow-up messaging, there's iteration involved that could improve your final message in ways you can't imagine. I'll give you a good example. I have a habit of, first of all, giving my ChatGPT prompt a persona. So I'll say, act as the VP of sales at this, or act as a VP of demand at this company and tell me X. And then it'll tell me what I want. And then I'll say, I just had a call with that person and they're interested in my services to sponsoring Sell Better. Tell me everything that I need to know, summarize everything you know about this person. And then I'll say, craft an email based on this discovery, and I'll throw in the transcript in ChatGPT so that it knows what to look at. Craft an email that's going to help me to to get them further along in the deal on our next call next week, because I set next steps, right? And they're like, here's an email, and here's the iteration part. Make this email more about them and less about me. Make this email shorter. Expand on this email and give me 2 versions, one in prose and one in bullet points. If you get good at this, what you're going to find is that even the free version of ChatGPT can spit out incredible information that helps you to craft top-notch follow-up messaging that's highly relevant to your buyers. And what do we know about relevance? It wins out over anything else when it comes to response rates specifically. Yes, part of her persona does like to laugh at funny memes. I'm a humorous seller. I'm an energy seller. You guys probably picked up on that. ChatGPT helps me to channel that energy into more effective messaging so that it's not chaotic and all over the place like it is on this webinar with me.
I'll just add a little bit because like we sell a lot of AI agents at JustCall. We also like the sales team is adopting, it feels like, some new portion of AI daily. And so I guess the word that I'll use, because you sort of stole the words out of my mouth, James, would be efficiency. And if you can leverage AI to do the things that will save you time or save you research, or do things that may have been mundane but still a necessity and will help you stand out, and then layer on top the personalization, that's in my opinion best in class, best in breed, where you still have that human touch and you're still separating yourself from the rest of the pack, while not trying to be fully automated. Because if you think of it, to some degree, automated messages have been going out for tens of years already. AI is just making them better, and at the same time also making them worse because it's saturating the market. And so using that advantage for, you know what, I did spend the time to do this, I'm just doing it in a more efficient or effective or robust way, will help you really stand out from the pack.
Standing out is the name of the game. Anybody that tells you different is probably struggling to get replies. I want to talk about video. We could talk about voice notes. We could talk about how AI is impacting those particular outreach pieces. I know that people tend to throw AI out there, haphazardly at certain aspects, but a lot of videos are being created with AI right now. I remember when video became something that everyone was kind of looking at in 2019, 2018, and it was being used very sparingly. Only the top % of salespeople, the top performers, were using it, and that's why they were getting the results that they were getting. But people got into this terrible habit of trying to find shortcuts. Great example. And this is what AI has changed. It was very common practice, early days of video prospecting and video follow-ups, to create a video for Jim and then run a report that first name equals Jim, and then send that video to all your Jims in your CRM. This was the most generic and poor use case for video that people come up with. Now we have a standard video that can be altered with AI to be hyper relevant and hyper personalized for your prospects. So I would say that people should probably look at AI as that thing that's going to change their behavior instead of that thing that's going to do more work for me so that I can do less. If everyone is in the room, if you're working towards a point where there's no more work to do, stop. That point does not exist. No tool will ever be created that stops you from having to do the work of being a sales professional. And if that's your mentality, you're going to be fired in the next 5 to 10 years. You will no longer be in sales. You'll probably be doing something else.
I can't recall where now, James, but I remember reading very recently that, if you're sending out bad outreach or bad emails, AI is not going to make that easier for you, but it's just going to literally make it, you're just going to be sending out more bad emails faster, right? It's just going to make that process easier. So it's all about getting good stuff in and hopefully good stuff out. And we all know
it's the automation problem of 2015, 2016 was that exact problem that you just mentioned. Everybody thought that you could load up more of that terrible messaging and double your results. And the truth is that you doubled your how many people can I piss off today, and that's all you've done.
Awesome. Folks, I can see that we're about 2 minutes away from, ending up the session. If there are any questions, we're happy to take those now. In the meantime, I'd love to ask both of you folks, if there's really one thing that you'd like our guests to take away, what would that be?
You're gonna put me on the spot first. Let me
Yes.
see here. I'm gonna take a second to think about it because I want it to be genuine. But
Okay.
yeah, if I could, I guess if I could have one key takeaway from this conversation, it would be, tying in the preparation to like personas and ICP and really taking the time to augment your preparation with AI. So I'll stick with preparation. I think it's really easy, especially if you've been in the sales game for a long time, or even if you've been in the same role for a long time, to start to go through the motions. And I see it all the time. And I'm not even talking about burnout. I'm just talking about, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing day after day after day. It's worked for me. Maybe it's starting to slow down a little bit. Find ways to prepare better, be creative, and use new methods to prepare better, and you'll see amazing results.
That's good stuff. I would tell everybody that you have the ability to get 1% better every day, and there's no excuse because there are so many resources out there for you. I just dropped a link in the chat for everybody to the upcoming Sell Better Daily Sales Shows. This is a free show that's live every day. Every team member that has the title of salesperson can come to this and learn something from the experts that we interview every day. That's my give to everyone that came today, and I very much appreciated being a part of this conversation.
Likewise.
Thanks, Deren. Really appreciated everything that you shared today. Thanks so much to the audience. You folks were awesome. And of course, watch out for follow-up from us. Thanks so much, folks.
Yeah, the follow-up. Good job.
Yes. Thank you.